Welcome to Talk Tickers, your shortcut to the essential financial intelligence shaping the year ahead. Today, we are doing a critical deep dive into the regulatory landscape for retirement savings in 2026. And this isn't just a memo for, compliance officers. This affects every plan sponsor, every payroll system, and really every high-earning saver aged 50 and over.
That's absolutely correct. We've got two major forces converging here. First, you have the standard inflation-adjusted increases to contribution limits. That's good news for everyone. But the much more pressing issue is the immediate operational deadline for the mandatory Roth catch-up contribution mandate from Secure 2.0.
Okay, so our mission today is to take that complex IRS guidance and just distill it. We need to walk you through the precise compliance requirements and highlight the non-negotiable adjustments that plan sponsors and those high earners have to make starting January 1, 2026. We're getting straight into risk management territory.
Exactly. Let's start with the good news first, though, the annual contribution limits. Since they're indexed for inflation, they're going up, which is a welcome capacity boost for savers.
Right, and I think we need to lead with a number most people check first. The primary limit for their 401k or 403b. What does that look like for 2026?
So the general exclusion limitation for elective deferrals, this is the 402G limit, is rising from $23,500 to $24,500.
An extra $1,000.
An extra $1,000 that participants can contribute, either pre-tax or Roth, assuming they're under age 50. This also applies to 457 plans and the Thrift Savings Plan.
That's a strong bump, especially when you think about compounding over time. But what about the overall ceiling for the plan? I mean, the max total amount, including the employer match.
That's the broader picture, right? The limitation for defined contribution plans, which is Section 415C, is increasing from $70,000 to $72,000.
Okay, so the total pie is bigger.
The total pie is $2,000 bigger when you combine all sources of contributions.
And just for completeness, are we seeing increases on the traditional pension side too, the defined benefit plans?
We are. The annual benefit limit there is increasing from $280,000 to $290,000, so that really covers the macro limits.
Now, let's focus on the crucial group for today's topic. Savers aged 50 and over. What's happening to their catch-up capacity?
The standard age 50 catch-up for most big plans, your 401k, is increasing from $7,500 to $8,000.
An extra $500.
Exactly. An important increase right before this mandatory change kicks in. And for smaller plans, the catch-up for simple plans is also up from $3,500 to $4,000.
And we should probably touch on IRAs too, since those limits tend to move with everything else.
Yes, definitely. The standard deductible IRA contribution is increasing from $7,000 to $7,500. And the catch-up for IRAs, for those 50 or over, is getting a smaller bump from $1,000 to $1,100. So you're seeing more savings capacity across the board.
That's the nice, predictable part. Now, for where it gets really complicated, where regulatory implementation becomes the urgent priority, these higher limits are great, but for a specific group of people, the tax treatment of that $8,000 catch-up has fundamentally changed. Let's go back to the source. It's Section 603 of Secure 2.0.
This is the provision that introduced the mandatory Roth requirement. It says certain eligible participants aged 50 and older must make their catch-up contributions using after-tax dollars.
So they lose the option to make that specific catch-up amount pre-tax.
They lose that option completely. It applies to 401k, 403b, and governmental 457b plans.
But not all plans.
Correct. It specifically excludes SEP and simple IRA plans, which is a small operational break for plans using those.
Okay, the crucial question then is, who is a high earner? Who is subject to this? What's the data point that plan sponsors are scrambling to monitor right now?
The definition hinges entirely on FICA wages. The mandate applies if a participant's wages, specifically for Social Security purposes, exceeded the threshold in the preceding calendar year.
So it's a look-back measurement.
It's a look-back, exactly. The statutory starting point was $145,000, but with indexing, the critical wage threshold we're looking at for 2026 eligibility, which means looking at 2025 wages, is $150,000.
So if you earned $1 more than that in 2025 from your employer,
then your catch-up contribution in 2026 must be Roth. No exceptions.
This was supposed to start in 2024. Remind us what happened there and why we're only hitting this compliance cliff now.
Well, the industry, especially payroll providers, raised huge concerns. They just weren't ready to implement the tracking needed. So the IRS provided a 2-year administrative transition period, a grace period. It meant for 2024 and 2025, pre-tax catch-ups were treated as compliant.
That 2-year lifeboat is now officially sinking.
It is. The transition period expires January 1st, 2026. The IRS has been very clear. No more extensions. This is it. Compliance has to be operational now.
Let's get into the core of that challenge. The operational hurdles. Identifying this group requires extreme precision, especially about which wages we're even talking about. What makes the wage test so thorny?
What's fascinating is the specificity. The single criterion is Social Security FICA wages. That's box 3 on the W-2. And critically, it is not Medicare wages from box 5, which don't have a limit. We're only looking at FICA limited wages from the common law employer.
That is a huge distinction. But what happens in, say, a complex corporate structure? An executive works for multiple related entities, maybe hits that $150,000 across the group, but not from one single employer.
And that's the regulatory triple axle. Generally, wages from different participating employers are not aggregated. It's just the wages paid by the common law employer sponsoring the plan.
So you could have an executive paid by 3 different entities who escapes the mandate.
Exactly. While another executive paid entirely by one member gets caught, it can seem counterintuitive.
That sounds like an administrative nightmare for a big, centralized company. Did the final regs offer any relief?
They offered a path. The final regulations say a plan document can be amended to allow for aggregation among a controlled group or common paymaster, so you can choose to simplify it.
But you have to take action to do it.
You have to amend the plan. Otherwise, the strict common law employer rule applies.
Okay, so let's say you've identified your high earners.
Yeah.
What's the immediate and potentially expensive consequence for the plan's design? I'm thinking of the universal availability requirement.
This is probably the biggest surprise for sponsors who only offer a traditional pre-tax 401k. The law says that if your plan allows a high earner to make Roth catch-up contributions, which they must if they want to contribute more, then the plan has to let all eligible participants make Roth catch-up contributions.
Wow. So if you have even one executive who hits that $150,000 threshold, you're now forced to implement a full Roth 401k option for everyone in the plan.
That's it. From the C-suite down to entry-level employees. It's a profound administrative shift. It means system updates, payroll changes, new plan documents, all possibly for just one person.
Given that complexity, how could administrators simplify compliance? That brings us to this idea of the deemed election.
This is a crucial planning point. To make this manageable, plan sponsors should strongly consider adopting a deemed election approach in their plan document.
But if the Roth mandate is law, why isn't this deemed election mandatory itself?
Because the IRS won't let a plan force all participants to make Roth catch-ups. The definition of a Roth contribution relies on an employee election. But the deemed election is a powerful tool for the mandatory Roth group. It means the plan automatically treats any contribution made by that person after they hit the standard limit as an irrevocable Roth contribution.
So it automates the process and protects the participant from making a pre-tax error. What's the prerequisite for that to be valid?
The participant has to be given an effective opportunity to just stop making deferrals entirely. As long as they can opt out of saving, you can automate the switch to Roth. It's the simplest way to manage it.
Let's turn to errors, because mistakes will happen. If a high earner mistakenly contributes their catch-up pre-tax, how do you fix that?
Errors are inevitable, you're right. And the final regulations outline 2 correction methods, assuming the plan has procedures to even track these things.
Walk us through the one that requires the fastest action.
That's the Form W-2 correction method. It's cleaner for the participant because it avoids current taxation. You transfer the contribution plus any earnings to the Roth account. Then payroll has to adjust the W-2 to report it correctly.
But the catch is the timing.
The catch is the timing.
Yeah.
This is only available before the W-2 is filed or furnished, so basically before the end of January.
That leaves payroll teams with just a few weeks to find errors, move money, and reissue tax forms. That sounds almost impossible for a big company.
It creates enormous pressure, and if you miss that window, you have to use the second and much less favorable method, the in-plan Roth rollover.
What does that mean for the employee?
The in-plan Roth rollover lets the plan move the erroneous pre-tax contribution and its earnings into the Roth account. But the big drawback is that the entire amount is taxable income to the participant in the year of the rollover. It gets reported on a 1099-R.
So the company's mistake becomes an immediate tax bill for the employee.
That's it. which is why prevention through that deemed election is so much better than the cure.
Is there any relief at all?
There's one small thing, a de minimis exception. No correction is required if the error is $250 or less.
Before we wrap up, what about specialized plans, like 403Bs or 457Bs that have their own catch-up rules?
Not entirely. For 403Bs, the special catch-up for employees with 15 years of service can stay pre-tax. The Roth mandate only applies to the age 50 catch-up portion that goes above that special limit.
And for governmental 457B plans?
It's a similar stacking rule. The special catch-up allowed in the 3 years before retirement can also stay pre-tax. The Roth mandate only hits the age 50 contributions made in excess of that. It requires incredibly careful tracking.
This level of detail just confirms that sponsors cannot wait. Even though some of the final regs don't fully apply until 2027, the law is effective now.
It is. The statutory mandate begins January 1st, 2026. For this next year, plans have to operate based on a reasonable good faith interpretation. But that really means adopting procedures that align with the final rules now.
Okay, let's bring this home. We want to leave our listeners with one crucial question they need to answer today.
Agreed.
The one question. For plan sponsors and payroll teams, are you actively monitoring FICA wages, specifically Box 3 of the W-2 for the $150,000 threshold, using data solely from the common law employer that sponsors your plan?
And why it matters is simple. If you fail to track that preceding year's wage threshold, you risk a compliance failure. The only fixes are that very restrictive W-2 correction, or worse, a forced taxable event for your employee.
So to recap the highlights, contribution limits are up, which is great. But the real focus has to be the Roth catch-up mandate. The grace period is over. Payroll and record keepers have to coordinate right now to identify participants who exceeded that 2025 FICA wage threshold of $150,000.
And for high earners, this isn't temporary. It is a permanent change that eliminates a major pre-tax deferral strategy. It fundamentally shifts retirement tax planning for them after age 50.
And finally, given the risk involved in correcting errors, the core takeaway is proactive planning. Plan sponsors have to explore the risks of not implementing a formal deemed election procedure now. Failing to do so really restricts your correction methods to highly unfavorable outcomes. This needs to be on your compliance docket immediately.
That's it for this deep dive into the 2026 retirement landscape. Until next time, stay vigilant and well-informed.